There was a silence, then a shot, then a body collapsing, then another silence heavier than the first. Between those two silences stands Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old boy with no past, no manifesto, no explanation, a boy who left behind a detonator, an explosive device, and a mystery that even Congress cannot illuminate. People often say tragedies begin with a sound. This one began with a silence, a heavy, almost physical silence that had settled inside an ordinary house in Pennsylvania. A silence no one knew how to interpret, a silence that carried a name: Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old young man, so discreet he was nearly invisible, whose life seemed to unfold without noise, without conflict, without story. Yet behind that calm facade, something had begun to drift, and that something was about to erupt into the open. The first signs were subtle. In the family's front yard, the pro-Trump signs that had been there for years suddenly disappeared. A neighbor, Kelly Little, noticed, not because she was watching the house, but because in a small town, you notice when something changes. And that change, she didn't know yet, would become a key piece of the puzzle. Crooks' parents, meanwhile, felt a deeper unease, an unease strong enough that they contacted authorities before the Butler rally. They didn't give details, but their voices carried an unusual tension. They knew something was wrong. They didn't know what. They didn't know how far it would go. But they knew their son was no longer the same. Thomas Crooks wasn't a political activist, not an extremist, not someone known to law enforcement. He worked at a fast food restaurant, lived with his parents, and visited a shooting club like many young men in the region. No criminal record, no violent behavior, nothing that could foreshadow what was coming. And yet in the days leading up to July 13th, 2024, a series of methodical, almost surgical actions began to trace a path toward the irreversible, a path he seemed to follow with unsettling precision. He went to the Clairton Sportsman's Club, where members remember him, calm, precise, silent. But the day before the attack, an instructor noticed he stayed longer than usual, fired more rounds, and seemed focused in an unusual way. Not nervous, not agitated, just determined. He bought ammunition. He took a day off work without explanation. He purchased a 5-foot ladder at Home Depot, paid in cash without saying a word. He assembled an improvised explosive device and placed it inside his Hyundai Sonata parked near the rally. And yet, despite the bomb, despite the preparation, despite the precision of his actions, investigators found no online searches on his phone related to bomb making. Not a single one. Experts confirmed no deleted history, no cleaning software, no VPN, as if someone had taught him, or as if he had never needed to learn. On the morning of July 13th at 9 a.m., a crucial security briefing took place in Butler. Local SWAT teams and snipers from Washington and Beaver counties attended. They received instructions, maps, risk zones. Everyone was there, except one essential agency, the Secret Service. Their absence, confirmed by congressional documents, remains one of the most baffling elements of the day, an absence that, to this day, has never been satisfactorily explained. Meanwhile, Crooks moved calmly. He entered the rally's security perimeter carrying a rangefinder. He was spotted. Agents watched him. They saw him measure distances between the stage and various points around the perimeter. They saw him look at rooftops. They saw him analyze angles. But when he left the secure zone, surveillance stopped. No one followed him. No protocol was triggered. This exact moment is where the security chain broke. Crooks vanished into the crowd, then reappeared where no one expected him, on a rooftop with a direct line of sight to the stage where Donald Trump was about to speak. Investigators still don't know whether he used the ladder he bought that morning to reach that roof, but the mere fact that he purchased it that day adds another layer to the preparation, a preparation that seems to have been planned down to the smallest detail. At 6:11 p.m., the first shot tore through the air. A bullet grazed the president's ear, wounding him. Another struck a spectator in the head, killing him instantly. 2 others were hit, one critically. Panic swept through the crowd. Screams, sirens, shouted orders collided in sudden chaos. On the rooftop, Crooks was shot dead by a Secret Service sniper. His body fell beside a phone and a remote bomb detonator. 2 objects that, together, painted a far more terrifying scenario than the attack itself. Because if he had pressed that detonator, the the story would have been very different. As technicians neutralized the explosive device, Crooks' parents were contacted. Their reaction was not that of parents blindsided by the unthinkable. They didn't ask, "What happened?" They asked, "Did he do something?" A heavy, almost prophetic question. They explained they had called authorities before the rally, worried about a sudden change in their son's behavior. They didn't know what he was planning. They only knew he was planning something, and that something terrified them. Inside the family home, investigators found an ordinary environment, a tidy bedroom, a computer with no incriminating history, no manifesto, no notes, no signs of radicalization. Nothing. Not even a sentence. It was as if he had wanted to disappear before acting. Neighbors described him as polite, quiet, almost invisible. But several mentioned a troubling detail. In the weeks before the attack, Crooks would leave the house late at night, alone, sometimes with a backpack. He would return an hour later without explanation. No one asked questions. Today, those nighttime outings carry a much darker meaning. The next day, Senator Ron Johnson sent a letter to the FBI, DOJ, and DHS. He demanded the preservation of all documents, communications, and internal messages between July 11th and 14th. He asked for explanations about security failures, decisions made, unexplained absences. But no response came. No confirmation that documents would be preserved. No details. Nothing. An institutional silence almost as unsettling as the attack itself. In the days that followed, investigators reconstructed Crooks' movements. They discovered he had scouted multiple rooftops in the weeks before the attack, that he had observed security patterns at other events, that he had studied possible shooting angles. None of this appeared on his phone, none on his computer. Everything seemed to have been done in his mind, as if he had prepared his act in an inner world no one could access. And at the center of it all, one chilling detail: Crooks left no written trace, no message, no journal, no file, nothing, not even a sentence, only an act that shook American politics, whose motivations remain obscure, whose logic still escapes investigators, an act seemingly designed to leave behind nothing but silence, a silence as dense as the one that preceded the tragedy,